think they would have said I was always a very curious kid. I was somewhat anxious and agitated because I grew up in a home where we had very little and we had a father that sadly was an alcoholic. And so we were always living with sort of financial instability. So I think there was probably a bit of curiosity, hustle, and anxiousness, is how you would describe me if you were painting a character in a story. But I was always out looking for opportunity, and when it was there, seizing it. I think that what we just saw with China releasing yesterday, and I
What
mean,
what did they release?
they just released their next level AI. Every day I'm on Claude, I'm on Gemini, I'm on ChatGPT Plus. There's an upgrade every day. It's not about intelligence, it's how do you apply it. I'll give you an example. The ingredients in your product doesn't matter unless it matters to me. So that is your key takeaway. You don't matter unless you matter to me.
People say be patient, but what does that mean to be patient?
All right. See, I have the opposite. I think if you sit on your back feet and be patient and hope to make things happen, if they do, it's a lot of luck. To me, an entrepreneur is incredibly impatient. They want things to happen tomorrow.
So, Tony, you have asked hundreds of people to tell their story. Today, the microphone turns around. And quick disclaimer, I'm going to ask question like using your style. If there's anything you feel uncomfortable with, please just we'll just skip it. Uh, so let's stop there. Before the world called you a storyteller, what story was the world telling about you?
I think they would have said I was always a very curious kid. I was somewhat anxious and agitated because I grew up in a home where we had very little and we had a father that sadly was an alcoholic. And so we were always living with sort of financial instability. So I think there was probably a bit of curiosity, hustle, and anxiousness, is how you would describe me if you were painting a character in a story. But I was always out looking for opportunity, and when it was there, seizing it. So I guess I've been an entrepreneur my whole life.
Wow. Seeing what you're doing today, it's tough for me to imagine an anxious Tony, to be honest. Because you seem so confident. You interview. I mean, we will get into chatter that matters a little bit further in the interview.
Began at a young age where I was always looking for opportunity. Even one of my oldest stories is like a lot of kids setting up a lemonade stand and hoping to shake the neighbors down for a few quarters. And I had a mother that was just wired a different way, and she made me look at that as a bigger opportunity. The fact that she sold me the lemons, rented me the pitcher. I had to figure out profit margin. I was just 5 years old, and I had to find a place in the sunny part of the park. And even though I didn't want to give any away, she encouraged me to sample some of it. And all of this went into factoring into what I thought was a simple task. And at the end of it, I'm not sure I made any more money than I would have just smiling at my neighbors and encouraging them to have lemonade. But I really felt that money was my own, that I'd earned it. And I just sort of, that was a lesson in life that has stayed with me my entire life, which is if you go after something, go after it with intent, go after it with heart, try to change the criteria by which the customer buys, try to make it more entertaining, engaging, and creative. And that's kind of led me through building, uh, founding, building, and exiting two very successful advertising agencies, a research firm, got me involved in podcasting, which I'm doing still to today, motivated me to start an AI firm in my 60s. And it's just been the impetus for my life, which is to look around and always know there's something out there that you can go after if that's what your heart desires.
Amazing. For the young entrepreneurs beginning their journey today, what would be your top three advice for them? Like through all the wisdom you've accumulated through all these years.
The most important thing is understanding the difference between an idea and an insight. I'll explain that to you. A lot of entrepreneurs fall in love with their idea. They're just their eyes are shining, their hearts are beating. They're seeing it's going to be the next big thing. And I imagine a musician playing guitar thinks they're going to be the next big thing as well. It's natural. in our heart. But the first thing I always say to entrepreneurs is, what is the insight behind the idea? What have you identified, either whether it's a consumer or an end customer, their head, heart, and hands, how they think, how they feel, and how they act, that you feel you're going to have a point of difference, that you're going to be there to help them get to where they want to go. You're going to help that business become more competitive, that consumer feel more secure. What is the insight that has led you to that idea? And if they can't connect the dots between the two, then that's the first thing I'd say is, how do you know that idea you're creating is something that people need? That would be my first point. Second thing is to realize that entrepreneurship is the hardest job in the world. It's not physical labor. So it's not like you're building a
Yes,
cement
yes.
wall, but it's hard in terms of the fact that you're on your own often. That success or failure really depends on you making mission critical decisions you haven't been trained for or weren't prepared for. That it unfolds and happens in a very unpredictable way, and that the great entrepreneurs of the world are the ones that are really marked by resilience, their ability to rebound from failure, from getting knocked off the path they thought they were. So that's the second thing, would be sort of the resilience. And the third thing is to realize that there's no such thing as work-life balance. They don't exist with entrepreneurs. They blend together. So you have to have that appetite you have for your business. Make sure you have enough left to have an appetite for your life, the people you share your life with, because you're always going to be out of balance. You're not going to go, it's 5 o'clock and my job is over. It's a 24 hours. You're going to dream your business in your subconscious. So three things: understand insight first before you start falling in love with your idea. Second thing is understand it's resilience. It's a marathon game, not a sprint game. And the third one is really recognizing there is no work-life balance. It's a 24-hour passion and pursuit. So make sure you carve up some of that and offer it to things that matter to you beyond just the business of doing business.
Amazing, Tony. Thank you for sharing all these golden nuggets. I'm sure any young entrepreneur, including me, we are learning. And one thing I have been struggling with, you spoke about it's a marathon, not a sprint. People say be patient, but what does that mean to be patient?
All right. See, I have the opposite. I think if you sit on your back feet and be patient and hope to make things happen, if they do, it's a lot of luck. To me, an entrepreneur is incredibly impatient. They want things to happen tomorrow. They're pushing. They're People say sometimes you're so tenacious. You're always, you never relax. You're always going after something. That is the mark of an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs is not like everybody can be an entrepreneur. It's and not everybody should or wants to be an entrepreneur, because it is a life of pursuit. And pursuit can happen in the most unexpected places. You could be sitting there after a long week with someone that you're in love with and going out for a dinner, and you notice something out of the corner of your eye and you want to pursue that. And it's not a person you want to pursue, it's an insight or an opportunity. And that's the reality. So for to say that it's patience, I think what they're trying to say is it doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it takes years before you're successful, but never lose that level of impatience, because the world's moving fast, and if you're not in step with it, someone else is going to jump ahead of you, and very often with the same idea that you had.
Wow, that's very true. Oh my God, because we have been told every time, be patient. And right now you're telling us the inverse. Entrepreneurs, we are not patient. We want things to happen yesterday. That's fascinating. And I thought being impatient was a bad thing. But thanks to you, I will reframe my mindset now. Okay, there's nothing wrong with me to be impatient, but I must not expect the results overnight, though. Thank you, Tony. Thank you for this one.
I, you've also
Um,
realized as an entrepreneur, when you go in and deal with very pragmatic things like, I need a legal document, a shareholders agreement, I need something from my accountant. They're very pragmatic. They're very patient people, because their job is to make, and their job is to mitigate risk and make sure they're not making mistakes. So very often you're coming in at 100 miles an hour and they're coming at you at 20 miles an hour. You think they're incredibly slow. They think you're incredibly cavalier, And what you've got to learn as an entrepreneur sometimes, though, is to slow your speed down when you need something from somebody. They might say, that's going to take 2 weeks, and say, listen, I appreciate that. That's a lot of work. But if you can appreciate the situation I'm in, I'm going to need that by the end of the week. Is there any way you can help me with that? And just, the thing about a lot of entrepreneurs, though, you're a bull in a china shop. You just expect everybody to be smashing through that store as the speed you are, and they're not. So you got to understand that there's times where you have to signal that you're patient, but in a way that still draws the kind of resources you need at a speed and a timetable that you require. But you can't just simply doing it by slamming into them and saying, "Why are you so slow?" And because you really hired them to not make mistakes. Or an entrepreneur, primarily you get ahead by making mistakes and learning from them. Does that make sense? The difference between the two jobs. So pragmatic skills that are very important to your job. When you hire the finance person, the human resource person, you're going, I don't want a meeting with you. I don't care about it. Just do the job. Understand that they're fulfilling a very important part of your organization. So there's sometimes you have to signal patience to hear what they have to say. But a great I've never met a great entrepreneur that I would say is a patient person.
Wow. And what you've said about one of your employees telling you the results cannot be done, will be done in 2 weeks, but you want it in 1 week, it remembers me what Steve Jobs was doing with his engineers. Like, he was always, I mean, he was not the best engineer, but he was always pushing them to, okay, I want this today. Why can't this be done? I think Jeff Bezos, sorry, he said if it does not defy the laws of physics, it can be done. Technically, that's what they say.
Yeah, listen,
That's powerful.
we just
Mm,
Elon Musk just did something that somebody said would take 2 years and 11 days because he doesn't follow the status quo. Now, here's another skill about an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur sees the status quo as the greatest opportunity in the world. People that live within the status quo see it as their safety. This is my safety net. This is my moat and my walls because I can operate in the status quo. I know how to do it in my sleep. I'm very good at it. So an entrepreneur comes catapulting over the wall saying we're going to change all of that. You're suddenly taking away certainty and creating uncertainty. So you got to realize that how you do it and the skill level that you do it. Jobs just had, Jobs and Musk and the Bezos of the world, they basically took no prisoners. It was like in a war horse of an Apache tribe. You ran that pony till it dropped, and then you got on a new one. And that's their mentality. But great entrepreneurs also are very good at recruiting different people with different skill sets that work at different ways and having them all believe in a higher purpose. They believing that they're part of something fantastic, that what they're creating is going to be of meaningful benefit to the planet, to the mankind, to the consumer. And so that's a great entrepreneurial skill. The Musks and Bezos get away with it because it's engineering driven, code driven, and they know that if that person can't perform at that level, they'll just replace it. And I'll give you a quick story. Alice Cooper, you might have known as a goth kind of rock band, was a raging alcoholic for years, but he was always known for bringing in the best musicians to his band. He was renowned for finding these young musicians and getting them to come in, but he knew he'd only have them for a short period of time because they would get very bored with his type of music and move on. But he felt that was his role as sort of this entrepreneurial band, is to give these people a stage, let them feel what it was like to perform in front of 20 or 30,000 people, but also celebrate when they left them. And that's another strength of a great entrepreneur, is to realize that sometimes people are going to come into your life and contribute to your vision, see you succeed with it, but then they're going to get an appetite for wanting to be the lead singer and move on. And to me, a great entrepreneur doesn't fear that as much as they respect the fact that they have an ability to bring somebody in for a short time, have them leave a better person, and realize that maybe that's as important to what their life journey is in creating a product or service that makes them a lot of wealth.
um, you have spent decades getting millions of people to believe stories about products. Um, what did that teach you about how easily a person can be sold a story about themselves?
Well, I'll tell you how storytelling came to me. I had been in the agency business for 20 years, and I was sitting in an audience. I wasn't speaking that day. I was sitting in the audience. And then back then, the speakers all came on. They had pinstripe suits and they had their initials on the shirts and suspenders. They were very serious. And this guy comes on the stage dragging a coat rack with an old hat on it, wearing hiking boots and hiking clothes. And I just immediately was fascinated by this. And he talked about what this hat represented in his life. This hat was passed down to him from his grandfather. And together, when his grandfather was alive, they used to go on these incredible hikes without a map, always different paths, and they'd have
Wow.
to find their way through it. And he said, today I'm so busy, but every once in a while that hat talks to me and says, it's time to go for a hike. And he said, a couple of weeks ago, it was a beautiful June day, and I was coming down to going for another busy day, and that hat talked to me. And I said, so I called in sick, put on my hiking boots. He said, I hated the feeling in the city, these boots and the asphalt. But I went off and I found this path that I'd ever been on, and he got out, and suddenly the boots were breathing in nature. And he started walking. He said, this gorgeous June day where when you're in the sun, you're delayering and the shade is still a little chilly. He said, it was so quiet. I could hear the birds singing in the thermals. He said, I was meditating, I was cleansing. It was everything I know my grandfather would be so happy for. I felt like he was with me. He said, but then I turned this long corner around the face of the mountain and I stumbled on a rock quarry. And as people were cutting rocks, they looked like ants up and down. There was acid in the air. It was nasty. It was dirty. But I had to get through this rock quarry to keep going. So as he's going through, he comes up to the first person and he says, what are you doing? The person looks at him, rolls his eyes, and says, buddy, what do you think we're doing? We're cutting rock. It's a fucking quarry. And, he's kind of embarrassed. He's walking. He kind of hits another person and kind of stumbles the same question, gets the same oil roll. Just as he's leaving the rock quarry, he sees a woman doing the exact same job, but she's singing. And it seems like the rocks are almost weightless in her hands. So she smiles at him and he says, you're happy. What are you up to? She goes, I'm part of a team building a great cathedral. And it
Wow.
just hit me that I realized the difference between the three people doing the exact same job is one had bought into something much bigger. Someone had told her a story about what they were building, that maybe this cathedral would be there for spiritual reasons or to protect the town or to be the center of town, or when the bell rang, it was for a wedding. And she was part of building that. And it hit me that I'd spent 20 years getting consumers to buy my clients' brands, but had they ever really bought in? And so I started studying storytelling. I went and I met with uh, Chuck Lorre, who did Big Bang. I went to Oxford Talks in Oxford when TED Talks were in Oxford. I studied some of the top script writers, and I really fell in love with the power of what stories do for us. What they do is they cognitively wire your brain. As I told you the story about hiking, you probably imagined the person dragging out on stage. You felt like what it was like. Your motor cortex was firing. You were walking with me on the hike. You might have felt the shoes. You might have saw at the moment when you were talking to somebody. Stories get you to leave this very busy and noisy world and transport you. So if you can ever present your product or service in a story, you have the ability to get the attention of the people that matter most. Now, the thing that the number one lesson everybody should leave with today is attention is the oxygen of all human endeavor. You can't buy, sell,
Wow.
lead, teach, motivate, preach, coach. You can't do parent. You can't do anything without having the attention of somebody. And today, in this noisy, noisy world where I'm not only consuming content from a fire hose, I'm actually contributing to that content. I'm creating it for the first time. It's tough to get attention. So that's where storytelling came along. And I started teaching the principles of storytelling all over the world, in China, Warsaw, Spain, Brazil, all through North America. I would talk about the power of storytelling. And the interesting thing about storytelling that most marketers need to understand is they're never the hero. I don't care if your network is the fastest. I don't care if you make the teeth the whitest, or you're the taste that people prefer, or you think you're the king of beers. You're not the hero of the story. The story, and we'll go back to insights, is the consumer or customer you're going after. Their quest is the journey they're on in life. What are they looking for? Are they looking for security? Are they looking for love? Are they looking for belonging? Are they looking for purpose or self actualization? Where are they in that journey? What are they trying to overcome on that journey? And what role can you play within the story to help them get there? Now, I'll tell you, there's a lot of products and services that don't belong in any story because they're just a commodity. But when you have a product, I'll give you an example. I worked with Pepsi for 32 years. 32
Wow.
years, they were the
32.
choice of the new generation. 32 years over two agencies. They were my client. Now, they thought they were the choice in the new generation, and Coke thought it was it. And the reality is, what both of them were caffeinated drinks. And that kept people up and alive. They felt good. And guess who came along into a different story? Red Bull. And Red Bull said, we're going to give you wings. Red Bull said, we're going to let you pull an all-nighter. Red Bull said to the trucker, you're going to be able to drive your truck without taking bennies. To the raver, you're going to dance all night with a vodka and a Red Bull. They changed it because they became part of the consumer story versus declaring their own story of being the choice of a new generation or Coke is it. And that's where you got to understand your products and services. Storytelling works if you play a meaningful role in someone's life. If you truly matter, if you're helping them get to where they need, want, deserve to go, or if business to business, you're helping that business become more competitive, you can wrap anything in a story. But if it's just simply your proclamation and declaration of being the king of beers or the choice of, or that's not a story. That is advertising from 25 years ago when you could pound that into your brain because there was only a handful of channels and you could have so much frequency that people started to believe it. Nowadays, it's a very different thing. What did Apple
Wow.
succeed with? Not because they had better technology in the Sony Walkman, because Steve Jobs said, we're going to put 1,000 songs in your pocket. We're going to give you a
Oh,
computer that you can
yes.
plug and play immediately. Right. So that was part of the story because they saw the frustration consumers had with technology. And he solved that. He made technology transparent. Where Sony Walkman was putting mixing boards on a portable walking machine and the DOS computers were so complicated, it took you a year to master. He made uh, technology transparent. And that's the success of Apple. When he took over Pixar, a lot of people
Oh,
don't realize it, but when he took over Pixar after the first 2 years, they had yet to get a good story, and they said we should release it. He said, "No, it's a terrible story. Redo it until you get it right," and that became Toy Story,
Toy Story.
right?
Oh
And
my
and
God,
again, the
yes.
insight in Toy Story was abandonment. As the kid grows up, are they going to abandon their toys? And every kid could relate to that story. So that's the point of storytelling. Is it's not that every brand fits, and it's not that it is, but if you could walk in the consumer's shoes and play a meaningful role, be the Yoda, be the fairy godmother, help you get to where you want to go, then storytelling is magic.
Oh my God. This was almost like a masterclass of storytelling, guys. I will rewatch this part, Tony, so that I can learn for myself. So, and guys, please rewatch. This was pure. I have nothing to add to that. I can't. I simply can't.
So just so you go, as you're for this is for you when you're rewinding it, the protagonist of the story. If you study storytelling, the protagonist at the beginning of the story is somebody you relate to. It's just an average person. Did you read Lord of the Rings, or did you watch or Hunger
I
Games?
watched the movie.
What
Yeah, I watched the movie.
movie? So if you watch the movie,
Yes,
Katniss
I watched
Evergreen
two.
is an average. Yeah, any story, any hero adventure, any Marvel comic, the hero is the protagonist. Something happens that they have to go on a quest. They are almost beaten to submission. They come back and win, but part of that pivot is somebody that helps them, that motivates them, that inspires them. That's the role your brand plays. The enabler, the mentor, the guide. When you position yourself that way, as opposed to saying, I'm the hero of the story, you can do magic. It's very simple, but a lot of people don't do it.
You know what, Tony? You've just exposed maybe one of my flaws. Because when I market, I am selling like I am the hero of the story, which is why I believe right now it's like an maybe
Yeah.
that's implement.
So your job as a coach, the hero of the story is the person you're coaching. Before you even begin, visualize to what end. What happens if they go through your coaching? What changes in their life? Is it a better relationship with their partner? Is it a more successful business? Is it better work life balance? What is to what end? What are you going after? Bring them into that saying, this is what we're going to get to together. This is the journey you're going to go on, and this is what I'm going to do to help you. But if that is the end game thereafter, they're going to look at you and say, and I tell you a great example of coaching. I talk about this in one of my workshops. Golfers always want to get better. So the golfer decides, I'm going to hire a golfing coach. Goes up to the first person, said, I went to Stanford. I played on the same team Tiger Woods played. I had the same coaching. I'm a fantastic coach. And the second one goes, well, I actually played in the PGA and won a couple of tournaments. And third one says, I am on Golf Digest. Fourth one said, I'm going to take 10 strokes off your game this summer. The other three don't matter. You're going to go, how? How are you going to help me? Because that's what I'm after. Versus all the stuff that your resume doesn't matter. The ingredients in your product doesn't matter unless it matters to me. So that is your key takeaway. You don't matter unless you matter to me. Think about that
Uh,
when you're talking about the people you're marketing to.
that's powerful. I heard someone said once, people only want the version of you that serves them. They want the version of you that serves them.
Yeah,
And this is
that's a
what you
great way to
just said.
say it. But and that. But again, put it to the future that serves where they're heading in life, that serves their dreams, that takes away their pain, that provides them what they're after in life. And that's the issue with a lot of marketers is they they just simply talk about who they are and they forget about why they matter. And I think that's the game changer where I think that you can be so successful with people. But to what end are we after? What are we doing together? What matters to you? And get them to open up about it, and then say, okay, that's what we're going to focus on.
Tony, I've seen the guests you have on your podcast, Chatter Than Matters, crushed survivors, refugees, and I've also seen Malcolm Gladwell. What questions do you ask your guests that you would be afraid to answer yourself?
It's a great question. I don't know. I mean, I think that I get very personal. What my guests come back to me is, you've asked questions no one else has asked. You've unlocked things that no one else has really reached for. And I'm very proud of that. And I wouldn't be afraid to answer any of those questions, because to me, it's sharing your flaws and your warts and your fears and your pain is as important as everything you're acclaimed for. And I think that when you realize that there's so many people right now in this world on their back feet, they're dealing with powerful negativity in this world, a growing sense of impossibility, and they're feeling it, and it's taking the wind out of their sails. So I think that to let anybody know that the protagonists, including themselves, everybody has fears, everybody has anxieties, everybody's got some elements that are pushing back, but the ones that overcome them probably have a greater sense of happiness and passion in their life than those that don't. And I'll give you a great example. I look at athletes that have been at the top of their game, and when they retire, they've got nothing. It's a
Ooh,
vacuum, because they all they lived for was the sport. And then when it's gone, it's just empty. People, same thing when people retire and they don't have anything to do it. And I think that life isn't about conquering one experience. In fact, I almost look at experiences as bricks in the wall. You just did this and you put a brick in the wall. Look what I've done. Look what I've done. But before long, you're so comfortable within those experiences, it becomes your prison. You don't look for anything else. And that's why athletes struggle so much, because their experiences of playing, they don't know what to do with it. And I think that one of the great gifts that we can give ourselves is to constantly look for new things. AI came along and I started a new AI agency. Well, what am I doing starting another agency at my age? Because I've been around since slides were my medium, and I saw the beginning of video and computer graphics, and
oh,
I saw branded content, and I saw specialty television. I saw all of this come along, and I
you've
podcast,
been
and
to
each
all
one of
the
them,
bubbles.
each one of them I wanted to crush. And AI is the same thing because I'm going, I don't want to stop and say I was the best at that or I was the best at this. I want to say, what I've got in my knapsack, is it capable for me to go after a new medium? I always say to people is never stop the chase. No matter, if you think it's all about, I'm going all over the place, but I'll just say there's another piece of
Oh,
advice for you. Four kinds of wealth in this world. Intellectual wealth, I'm learning. I'm surrounded by smart people. There's intellectual wealth. I am learning. I'm surrounded by smart people. Emotional wealth. I feel comfortable here, excited. I feel like I have a purpose. I feel like I'm part of something. I'm building a cathedral. There's hands-on wealth, which I can see the output of my efforts. Very hard nowadays when everything goes to the cloud, but I can see the outputs of my effort. And then there's financial wealth. Anybody that chases financial wealth will never be happy because somebody will be always wealthier than you.
wow.
If you can find two to the three, you're going to have a great life. Intellectually, I'm stimulated. Emotionally, I feel excited. I'm doing something that I feel has got purpose for the planet, for humans, for others. Two of those three, you're going to be successful. Find all three, you're going to have the greatest life in your. And by the way, and if money's important, it's going to chase you with those things. It's going to chase you. Only time I ever chase money, I fail when I chase intellectual, emotional, and actual practical work. Money chases me, and it's not like immense wealth because I don't care about that. It's I have more than enough to continue to pursue the things that matter. But go after the intellectual, emotional. People, the entrepreneurs who go, I'm going to make so much money with this. They think about their end game as the exit strategy, and I go, I have no time for it. But if you tell me what you're doing and why it matters to people, and why you think you can do it better, then I pay attention. Now, where did you come from originally?
Uh, Mauritius Island. Have you heard about Mauritius?
My wife is South African, so I'm getting I
Oh,
have
so your wife will
yeah.
know about Mauritius.
You have a French accent as well. Bring those into the coaching. What did you learn on that island that's in your knapsack? What did you learn with your experiences that you came here that make you different? What context do you offer that says that I have something that others don't? In a world where we're getting more and more divided, some of the most important roles in the world will be building bridges again. And we're getting divided on purpose. Social media is dividing us.
And AI.
Hate keeps our eyes on ball. AI, and so that's the stuff that you look for, and you see that's in my knapsack. I'm going to carry that island's going to be with me the whole time. I don't know if you came off the island or your parents, whoever left it, but what did how much of you is still left there? And that's the stuff that you got to be thinking about as you're building your own story.
After hundreds of stories of people overcoming the impossible, if I may say, Tony, what separates the person who rewrites their internal story from the person who just keeps rereading it over and over and is stuck in like a vicious cycle?
I go back to my analogy of the bricks in the wall. I get very comfortable where I am. I feel the experiences I can talk about for the rest of my life, and I'm happy and I'm satisfied. I'm within my status quo. And the danger is the world's moving so quick. And what we once thought was security is becoming insecurity. So the difference between those that make things happen versus those that watch things happen is the ones that make things happen realize they're being born in the most extraordinary time in the history of humankind. Like this is an
Yeah.
opportunity where a kid your age can go and become the next Elon Musk, and nothing's stopping. You don't have boundaries. It's not about private schools anymore or network. It's just about applying yourself. And so but there's a lot of other people that get very nervous and are trying to burr their way in to their status quo and just hold on as long as they can. And I think that's what happened in Canada in the last 10 years. We just try to live within our status quo versus redefining what we're going to be as a country going forward. And I think that that to me is the difference between making things happen and watching what happens. And nowadays, you're either making things happen or you're sadly watching and then wondering what happened. And when you think about that, that everything I thought and took for granted in life has been pulled away from me. And that's the difference. I say to youth, people go, "Oh, there's 18% youth unemployment." I said, "Are you in the?" I think it's 18%. A lot of people have dropped off, living in the parents' basements, not looking for work. What I say to you, 18%, does that worry you? They go, "Yeah." I said, "In your report card, did you ever get 18% on anything?" No. What was your average? 80 or 90%. So why are you worried about the bottom 18%? Focus on what you are. Focus on what you can be. Your competition is not about the people that don't have a job. Your competition is going after the best job for you. That's what you should be focused on. And I think but that's a psychological thing and sadly we've beaten that out of a lot of people in school, in the home, the sense of, capitalism's got a bad word in society. And I'm going, the fact you can drink water out of your tap and flush a toilet, it's capitalism.
Yes.
It's,
And
but yeah, the
more
phone,
fun.
everything, the connectivity. So I think that's the difference between making things happen, watching what happened and wonder what happened. Watching's gone away. You're either going to make things happen or you're going to wonder what happened. That's how fast the world's changing.
Tony, because of the time limit, there's one topic I must dive into before we part ways. AI. I mean, you've started an AI company that, like you said, you cannot not be curious. You must like dive into every new technology. And you have lived through all the eras. You've seen the internet, you've seen social media, and you were in marketing. Like you are literally in the hall of fame of marketers. So that's pretty insane on its own. How does AI compare to all these other, like the internet bubble, social media, even the industrialization, electricity?
AI will be the most destructive tool to status quo we've ever experienced, and much quicker than we ever imagined. So the
Destruct.
world is going to change.
What do you say this by destructive? In a positive way or
Well, I'm going to tell you that. So there's going to be a positive and a negative to it. The negative side of AI is for people that are using AI to do the work for them, they're going to be out of work. AI is just learning from you and it's getting faster, better, and cheaper every day. So that's the vast majority of people. I'm even seeing with young people, oh, yeah, it's great at writing a report. I had to change a few words. It did this for me. It did that for me. And it's almost like it's my tool. Well, that, that servant's suddenly going to be your master. So you got to realize that. The people that use AI as this extraordinary orchestra of knowledge, that if you work with it, you train it, you prompt it, you probe it, you challenge it, you debate it, you work one AI off the other, it's the most exciting and addictive world. I was up at 5 this morning working on a problem. I can't believe what is available to me. I wish I was 20 again, because what I'm learning and teaching, and if I have a hypothesis or a hunch, I can get AI to go out and search and validate and research it, which I could never do before. It's the most extraordinary thing. I think in the military, AI is going to be horrific. And I think because humans have got this need to conquest and take from each other, but it's here to stay. It's not going away. So my advice to anybody that embrace it, as I say to young people, stop TikTok scrolling, Instagram scrolling. It's
waste
just
of time?
dopamine. It's just dopamine that they've intentionally given you to get you hooked and to keep you there as long as they can. Play with AI, whatever you're passionate about. You talk about. I lived on a vacation island. That gave me an incredible insight into. I've never thought of an island like a vacation island. What does that mean? What happens? It means every day there's a bunch of new people coming in, and they're going to be seeing the island for the first time every day. How would I take advantage of that? What are the opportunities with it? How can I bring that to other people? It's almost like a tide that comes in and washes the bad water and brings in the good water. What does an optimism look like? How do I build from that? And how does AI? What are other places like that in the world? What do they do? And next thing I know, I'm going to be the expert at creating optimism. If it's just a city block, if it's this high school, if it's this place, I'm going to be the person that's going to find a way to unlock optimism. That's what I'm going to do. But AI instead of hoping that my friends and researchers and I can think about it and maybe read a book on it, I'm going to have this orchestra go out and study it and test it and validate it. And what does it mean? And does that mean, oh my God, I just found islands like that are optimistic. The youth that leave, 25% of them come back. And so they regenerate their island. Or it does this or it does that. I'm going to learn all this stuff and then be that expert. That's what AI can do for you. But for the average person, it's going to be a soul cruncher because it's going to be everywhere. And if all you do is do transactional work with it, AI is just going to do it. Never ask for a holiday. Like, let me break it down this way. Why capitalists hire people and why they grow their businesses is that they get productivity from the people. People combined with machinery, people combined with
Yes.
technology. So when I want productivity in my organization, I got to put those two things together. AI, you can find productivity without a lot of people. So,
Yes.
so that's the
One
difference.
employee with three agentic AI. They
Yeah.
can compensate for
And
10, I guess.
so you've got to realize that we're doing in a different world. And then if I was a young person starting off, I'm saying, well, who am I going to target? Well, the mass consumer, if I don't know if you've heard of the K economy, but think of the letter K, the uppercase, 20% of the world and controls most of the wealth. And even 3% of that 20% controls
The billion.
80% of that entire wealth.
Yeah.
The bottom K, 80% of the world, less and less wealth. So if I'm an entrepreneur, I'm probably going to be targeting the upper K. So I'm going to be creating,
That's smart.
I'm going to be the expert in optimism and tourism for places that want to have people come in there and go, I want to leave this negative world, this overpowering world. I've done mindfulness, I've done yoga. Now I'm going to create this optimism place that I can go to and regenerate my soul. Maybe that'll be your business. AI can help you do that.
When do you believe super intelligence will be a reality?
I think it's here now. I think that what we just saw with China releasing yesterday, and I
What
mean,
what did they release yesterday?
China just released their next level AI. Um, every day, I'm on Claude, I'm on Gemini, I'm on ChatGPT Plus. There's an upgrade every day. It's not about intelligence; it's how do you apply it. I'll give you an example. I watch a lot of rock documentaries. How did this band that used to play in this bar end up at the top of the world? How did they stay
Yeah.
together? What's their culture? How do they find a way to fit? How do they deal with the fame? How do they everything they didn't expect? And there's usually somebody, one or two people, that are driving the brand and the soul. They're writing the music, they're pushing the band, they're demanding more. That's what you got to do with AI. AI, you've got all the session musicians you could ever imagine. You've got all the talent you could ever imagine. So, but you still want to be the conductor, the songwriter. You still want the insight. You know, like the in a world of negativity, there's utopia that exists in these places. They're called optimism islands. I grew up in one. I'm there to help you find that within your world. Whoa, okay. So but you got to have that insight. AI is not going to give you the insight. AI is going to help you validate: is there a market? Like the great example. Have you heard of the blue zones?
Blue
There's seven
zones?
blue zones in the world where
No.
people live uh, disproportionately to over 100 years and healthy.
Japan is one of them.
Japan's one, Sicily's one, there's one in California, Costa Rica, where I have my winter home, is one. And it's a combination of Mediterranean diet, movement, belonging. So I'm with people every day. Has nothing to do with wealth or materialistic goals. And I mean, many of the people in these islands drink and smoke but they live long because they're a sense of belonging. They're optimistic about their life. They're not competing with the life that's been presented to them on the internet. And I think whoever came up with the blue zone has now monetized that in so many ways. I think you met me today to talk about your optimism, your whatever you called it, the optimism island, or you came from where the island of where,
Asian
yeah,
Paradise Island.
yeah. You can't where everybody was optimistic.
Yes.
That could be your the soul of everything you bring in your life going forward.
It
But
can be
figure
my
out why.
unfair advantage in the market.
point of differentiation, but find out why they're optimistic and what else. How you can you bring that to a culture? How can you bring that to an individual? How can you bring that to a place, your school? How can you bring that to your roommates? Like, how do you start understanding what optimism means? AI is going to help you do that.
Wow. There's something I genuinely like, and because I was guilty of this, it's the insight must come from you, and
Mhm.
AI validates the idea.
Absolutely.
Uh, I don't know if you were guilty of this, Tony, but when I started using I was letting AI think for me. It was lazy work. But after you know how AI works. It starts telling you things you should do. I was like, no, 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 no. I don't want to do that. And then this is when it dawned on me. And thank you for just clarifying this for any of the youngsters out there.
Mhm.
Do not let AI think for you. Get the insight first. Meditate. That's what I do. Meditate. Calm yourself down. Let your creative juices uh, flow, and then use AI to validate the market. I do have a deep philosophical question I ask to every single guest. Whether we like it or not, Tony, we will leave this earth sooner or later. And when this time comes for you specifically, how do you want to be remembered?
This might be my ego talking, but he helped me some way or other. That people will come out and say, there's a time in my life that he helped. So I'd rather be the Yoda than the entrepreneur. I'd rather be thought of somebody was there when they needed it, like I'm here today for you, as opposed to being
Thank you.
remembered because I'm in three halls of fame or I built this agency or doing that. And I hope that starts first and foremost with my daughters and and then all the people that I've connected with. Because ultimately when you as you get to my age and you start reflecting on life, it's the people you met along the way that 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 truly matter. Those moments when you connected with somebody that truly matters. So that's how I would answer that question. He answered the bell. He picked up the phone.